Hi everyone, Tally and Farrell here from Board a Bit.
Today we're going to be reviewing Pax Pamir, 2nd edition. This is a game from root designer Cole Weller. It's for between 1 and 5 players, and I have seen it described as basically being like a knife fight in a phone box, which, yeah, I mean, it's pretty accurate. It's got a lot of accolades recently, particularly when the first printing came out, which was last year. And now there's a lot of buzz about it because of those accolades, and also because the second printing is currently making its way into people's hands. In Pax Pamir, you're going to take on the role of an Afghan tribal leader who's going to use the chaos of a recently collapsed empire to make yourself the most powerful force in the region. To do this, you're going to be using invading foreign armies as your own personal chess pieces, and you're going to claw your way to the top. Chaos is a ladder.
This game has all of the political intrigue of Game of Thrones, as at higher player counts there's going to be a lot of diplomacy, but you can never really trust anyone. It also has some very similar elements to Root, namely the tug of war for space and victory points, but also the ice-cold backstabbing and infighting amongst former allies. We've got to say this is a great game and many of those accolades are very well deserved, but it's certainly not going to be for everyone. So let's get into it and find out if it's a game for you. But before we do, just to take a moment and ask you if you could subscribe to our channel for regular board game reviews, always with a hint of doggo.
At its core, your turns in Pax Pamir will be pretty simple. And this is because you have up to 2 actions on your turn, and there's only ever 3 things that you could do. You could buy a card from the market, you could play a card from your hand into your court, or you could take an action on a card that you've played. Each card has a suit, and if any of the cards you've played match the suit that is the current suit, then you can take the actions on those cards without them counting against your 2 action limit. When you play a card into your court, there will be an instant effect, and this will usually be placing things somewhere. So each card is associated with a region. This one's Kandahar, which is here, and this dictates where the things are placed. You know, if it's an army or a road, it goes on the map. If it's a tribe, it goes on the map as well. But if it's a spy, it will go on a card that says Kandahar anywhere in play, the one you just played or an opponent's card. At the start of the game, you are going to pick a coalition to be. The coalitions are Afghan, Russian, and British. And these represent those foreign interlopers that you'll be playing like a fiddle for your own benefit. You can also change at any time, and you probably will, through certain actions. And the blocks, their colours, represent these factions. So this green would be Afghan, for example.
There are 4 scoring cards throughout the deck, and if one is purchased from the market or it falls off the end of the market board, scoring is triggered. If a coalition has 4 or more blocks out than any other, players who back that coalition will score VPs, and if multiple players have backed the same coalition, they must internally race to have the most influence with that coalition in order to score more VPs. If no coalition has 4 or more blocks out than any other, the scoring comes down to the amount of cylinders that a player has out to score victory points. On the 4th scoring check, the game is over, or it can also be over instantly if any one player has 4 VPs more than another player at any one time. The primary gameplay is a very tense tug of war.
Not that kind of tug of war.
Where you'll be playing cards to get out more coalition blocks whilst also using your existing armies and roads to move and battle enemy coalition blocks. The issue is your lead, if you ever get one, probably won't last more than your turn unless the player sitting next to you is backing the same coalition. This is a very tight game. Due to limited turns, you're going to struggle to get into a good position and be able to trigger the scoring card.
Pax Pamir is difficult to learn. there's a lot of what you could call sub-rules to keep track of, and these are very easily forgotten when the game gets going and things are moving fast. And what makes this worse, and is Tally's pet peeve, is that they've only included 2 player guides in a 5-player game. And this means that no one gets to study them for any length of time because they're always being passed around in the heat of the game. This is a difficult teach as well, because firstly, the aforementioned sub-rules and kind of nuances of the game. Secondly, because of the incredibly abstract art direction of Pax Pamir. You know, tokens can be multiple things depending where they are in the game or in their orientation. And this has created this ongoing problem we see where players really struggle to link what they're physically doing to like a thematic action or thematic goals or strategies. If we just give you a visual example of this, if you watch these blocks moving, if you didn't know anything about the game, it's not apparently clear what's happening. Whereas if we replace these blocks with army people and you watch, you see an army move, you see an army battle and an army be removed. And that's quite clear. Essentially, we're just saying that if you can possibly do it, get everyone to read the rulebook before you play. It's very well written, and this will really help link the thematic ideas behind the game with the physical actions.
And this abstractness comes from the art direction that the game has taken, which we have to say is incredibly beautiful. The blocks have a real weight to them. The cylinders are pretty well crafted, although we did just notice a little bit of paint coming off the sides. And the cards are really high quality, all of which makes Pax Pamir a delight to have out on the table. The fabric map is also a really nice touch, although it can be a little annoying as even after many plays we struggle to 100% straighten it out, so you get these kind of little curls and wrinkles, but that doesn't affect the gameplay. You also have the option to flip the market board over and have the map as a board if you prefer that, although obviously that's then at the cost of a very nicely organised market. So it's worth talking about the price, as we've seen it pretty high due to the limited availability of Pax Pamir. We backed this on Kickstarter for $70, and it's probably about the limit we'd feel comfortable paying. We wouldn't recommend people paying much more than that because Pax Pamir is a time investment. You can't just play once, twice, or even thrice and decide that you don't like it. It requires multiple plays before it clicks in your head. For me, on the 5th game, I was still like, no, don't get it, not into it. But then on the 6th game, something just clicked and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm into it. Bottom line is, if you see this for upwards of $90 and you'll never get it to the table with 4 or 5 players, then don't do it.
And you know, speaking of the player counts, one thing I find fascinating about Pax Pamir is how it plays out like a different game at every player count. 2 players is definitely the most brutal and unforgiving. 1 mistake will probably mean you're going to lose. And the thing is, if you're only going to ever be able to get it out at 2 player, then we can't recommend it because you're missing a lot of the experience. You know, you're missing the betrayals, you're missing the teamwork, you're missing the scheming, conniving. It's just not there. But at higher player counts, what I find really interesting is, how these teams form. And you have these teams, but yet you're at the same time trying to undercut your teammates because only one of you can have the most influence with a coalition. And also I like that it's really balanced. You would think that with 3 players on one coalition versus 2 players on another coalition, that it would be, the 3 players would really easily get out all of their blocks. But what happens is there's now 3 of them in one coalition. Only one of them can have the most influence. So then you get this infighting and they have to spend time gaining influence, whereas the other team is just spending time placing blocks out. And it all balances out really nicely.
What we love about this game is that it's very cerebral. You always have to think about what you can do to put yourself in the best position. Is my coalition going to win dominance? Does that seem unlikely? Well, then maybe I need to focus on getting my cylinders out whilst talking my coalition buddies into doing all the dirty work. Alternatively, does it look like my coalition is going to win? Well, then I need to think about who has the most influence with that coalition. So maybe I should buy some Patriot cards or focus on destroying my teammates' cards.
the entire time you play will have you feeling like Littlefinger. Just as an example, in a recent game that me and Tally played, we were both on the British coalition, but Tally had the most influence and I didn't have any opportunities to catch her up or go ahead of her. So what I did is I played a Russian Patriot card that allowed me to get 2 cylinders out. Then I was tied for the most cylinders out with another player, and I instantly bought the scoring card in the market, scoring 2 points. The other player scored 2 points. Tally didn't get anything. And the reason I did this was because, yeah, I would have got 3 if I'd stuck with her, because we would have got dominance as a British faction, but she would have got 5, and that's a lot of points to be on in this game. And then I would be always chasing the game, and if she had one more good scoring round, she would probably be away with the victory. So then, by doing this, I kept everyone close together. I got points. I stopped my main opponent from getting any points, and hopefully I was putting myself in a place to leapfrog out and get points in a later scoring card.
One thing that can really alter the gameplay, which may put some people off, is the randomness of the deck. The game comes with all these cards, but you only ever use a portion of them to form the play deck, which means you don't know how well distributed they are in terms of the type of cards and the actions they provide you. And also it's totally random as to which cards come out when. As an example, in our last game, we pretty much came to a standstill towards the end because there were no cards on the market that allowed anyone to place armies or roads. So no coalition could alter the game state. I personally find it really frustrating to know what you want to do, but be unable to do it because there are no cards in the market that would allow you to do those actions, and it's pretty much out of your control. In a similar vein, the scoring cards can make things really tricky. They are easier to predict because they're inserted into the deck at specific points, but there can still be issues. If there are ever 2 scoring cards on the market at the same time, you score instantly. So there can be instances where you've scored the first card and then before you've had a chance to do a full round, the second and third scoring cards come out, so you again score instantly before anyone's had a chance to alter the board.
Also, speaking of the scoring cards, the final scoring card scores double. And I'm kind of in 2 minds about this because on one hand, it keeps everyone in the game till the very end, which is quite good. But then on the other hand, you can try your best, you can work with what you're given and the randomness, you can eke out points every previous scoring, and then someone just leapfrogs you into first place with their first victory points of the game. It's kind of crushing. But all the stuff that we're talking about, it might worry you or it might put you off getting the game, but we can't really call these issues because it's just the game. We love Pax Pamir because it's such a tense, reactive experience. It's a sandbox of deception, and I find it amazing how a few little actions on your turn, cleverly made, can alter the game state so you go from being last place in your coalition to the top dog. You're just going to have so many novel experiences while playing this game. One game everyone might be on the same coalition, only one coalition in play, just fighting out for influence. In another game, you might go toe-to-toe with someone over blocks the entire game. Just when you think you've destroyed them and taken the advantage, they play 2 Patriot cards that match your coalition, swap sides to your team, and now they're tied with you for the most influence with that faction. This is a game that is going to give you stories. It's going to provide shared experiences. There's going to be twists, there's going to be turns, there's going to be drama, and there's going to be anger. And it does all of this in a very reasonable playtime. Basically, every game of Pax Pamir fascinates us. It provides so many interesting options and decisions, many of them centered around diplomacy and betrayal. Every game feels totally different. And, the randomness of the cards push you to make these risky gambits on the fly, and boy does it feel good when they pay off.
Also, you get all of this drama in a relatively short time. Pax Pamir is not an overly long game, with most games coming in at under 90 minutes, even at high player counts. It's a full recommendation from us, with the caveat that you should only get it if you can really give it a chance and not just decide after one game, because it really is a grower. If If you enjoyed this video, we'd really appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to our channel for regular board game reviews, always with a hint of doggo.